भगवते उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवतिर्नैष्टिकी ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। मुखं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुदीनतारिणं परमानन्दं। So we were discussing the instructions by Swayambhavu Manu to his grandson Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva's brother Uttama had been killed by one yaksha, and Dhruva in anger had taken his chariot to Alkapuri, the abode of the yakshas, blown his conch. The yakshas, being warriors by nature, had resorted by attacking him, and there is a description of the battle that initially Dhruva Maharaj had the upper hand, and then the yakshas, and then Dhruva Maharaj, and then the yakshas resorting to all kind of mystic effects bewildered Dhruva Maharaj. And then the sages came and reminded Dhruva Maharaj to meditate on Lord Narayan, or to meditate on or reminded him of the Narayan Astra that he had. And then Dhruva, he casts the Narayan Astra against the yakshas, which starts killing them and dispels all the illusion. And then Dhruva starts indiscriminately killing the yakshas. At that time, Swayambhavu Manu comes and he forbids him. He instructs him on the seeing the falsity of what he was doing. So we are resuming from verse 8, chapter 11, canto 4. Nasmad kulochitam tata karmaitat sad vigrahitam yado vado yadupadevana arbadaste krate nasham. My dear son, the killing of the sinless yakshas, which you have undertaken, is not at all approved by the authorities, nor does it befit our family, which is supposed to know the laws of religion and irreligion. So Manu refers to the yakshas as upadevas. So the yakshas are celestial beings, but not in the category of the demigods. So it's said that in the hierarchy there is the humans, higher than the humans are the ghosts, higher than the ghosts are the pitras, and then these sub-divine creatures like the yakshas and the kimpurashas, and then of course are the devas, and then higher than them are the direct sons of Brahma. So they're referred to as upadevas here. And Manu is reminding Dhruva of his exalted lineage. He says Asmat Kula, our family. So also establishing the reason that he's coming here to instruct Dhruva because of his affection for him. Even though he's chastising him, it's the chastisement of a father or a grandfather for the child. So he says Asmat Kula, that our family that is descending from Brahma, Manu, and Uttanpad, all these leaders are, he says, Sat. Sat means that they're firmly established in religion. And he says, what you are doing is vigaritam, forbidden activities. So what's the forbidden activity he's doing? Vada akarta enasham. So he's killing sinless upadevana. He's killing sinless yakshas. And the reason they're sinless is because they're not guilty of killing his brother. He does not know which yaksha killed his brother, but in retaliation, he's killing those who are innocent of the sin of killing his brother. This is a abominable activity. Verse 9. Nanva ekashya paradhena prasangad bhavo hataha bhraturva dhabitatpena tvayanga bhratravatsalah. My dear son, it has been proved that you're very affectionate towards your brother and are greatly aggrieved at his being killed by the yakshas. But just consider, for one yaksha's offense, you have killed many others who are innocent. So Dhruva might say that, how can you say that the yakshas are innocent? They are guilty of killing my brother. And he might also seek shelter of the fact that under extreme circumstances, one is allowed to break the principles of dharma. It's like you should not tell a lie, that is dharma. But if you have to save the life of another person, you can tell a lie. So there are circumstances in which activities that are generally forbidden are condoned. So Dhruva might say that I have a lot of affection for my brother, and I'm overwhelmed with the grief of his being killed. And these yakshas are not sinless; they have killed my brother. Right? So Dhruva has implicitly made 3 points: strong affection for my brother, greatly aggrieved by his loss, and greatly angered at the yakshas. In this verse, Manu, he counters each of these 3 points. So he says that you have already demonstrated your love for the brother by undertaking this heroic task. So you don't have to undertake any more effort. Then he says, I'm grieved by his loss. And then Manu says that your grief is understandable. However, your brother was killed by one yaksha, and you have killed so many. So grief does not mean one becomes completely unreasonable. One does not completely deviate from the path of dharma. Concessions may be allowed, but not refutation. Then thirdly, Dhruva might say, I'm greatly angered. So Manu says that you're killing those who are innocent. So anger and grief do not justify such reckless behavior. So the implicit point is also made here that given his affection for his brother, Dhruv had been bewildered by his death and is therefore acting unreasonably. So while Manu is counteracting possible arguments that Dhruv might make, the verse is also, in a way, protecting Dhruva. So this verse read in a different way can also imply that I know that you were bewildered by the death of your brother because you have strong affection for him. And because of that, you were acting unreasonably. So you can be excused. But enough is enough. So the same verse is also offering protection to Dhruva from his grandfather. Verse 10. Nayam margohi sadhuna rishikeshanuvartina Yadatmanam paragraya pashuvad bhutavashisham. One should not accept the body as the self, and thus, like the animals, kill the bodies of others. This is specially forbidden by saintly persons who follow the path of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Earlier, Swayambhavu Manu had glorified the lineage of Dhruva. Etat Sat, he said, those who know the meaning of Dharma. Now he is glorifying the position of Dhruva as a devotee. So Prabhupada says that Dhruva Maharaj is advised here by Lord Manu that since he is a pure servitor of the Lord, why should he unnecessarily engage like animals in the bodily concept of life? An animal thinks that the body of another animal is his food. Therefore, in the bodily concept of life, one animal attacks another. So, Swayambhavu Manu is preaching to Dhruva both from a platform of piety and a platform of spirituality. The previous verses for how does one who knows the principles of Dharma act? This verse is talking about how does a devotee act. So one who does not accept the body as the self, which means that the person considers himself to be the spirit soul. Right? So how can he kill the bodies of others? And the most powerful point that is made is that the perfection of a devotee is in following the footsteps of other devotees. So Manu is saying that if you were to consider yourself as a devotee, then you would follow the footsteps of what the others have said. And he's saying this is not permitted by those who follow the path of devotional service. So not only is it incorrect as a tattva, it is also incorrect from the perspective of getting the mercy of other devotees. Verse 11. Sarva bhutatma bhavena bhutavasam harim bhava aradhya paduraradhyam Vishnustat paramam padam. It is very difficult to achieve the spiritual abode of Hari in the Vaikuntha planet. But you are so fortunate that you are already destined to go to that abode by worshipping him as the supreme abode of living entities. So Prabhupada says that Dhruva Maharaj as a Kshatriya could have argued with his grandfather when Manu was requesting him to stop fighting. But even though Dhruva could have argued that as a Kshatriya, it was his duty to fight with the enemy, he was informed that since every living entity is a residence of the Supreme Lord and can be considered a temple of the Lord, the unnecessary killing of any living entity is not permitted. Previous verse, Manu was talking about the need to follow the instructions of other advanced devotees. Now, in this verse, Dhruva says that you are that advanced devotee. You are the one that people will look up to because you are already destined to go to Vaikuntha. So, in case you say that I am a Kshatriya, I say that you are a devotee. In case you say that, well, as a devotee, I am still aspiring, I say that you are a perfected devotee. So there is no reason for you to deviate from the path of pure devotion. So Dhruva, he is glorified as Aradhya Durardhyam. Aradhya Durardhyam means that he successfully worshipped one who is very difficult to worship. And he had perfected his devotional service at a very young age and attained the boon to return to the spiritual world. So Manu is saying that for even aspiring devotees, these actions are condemned. How much more so for a perfected devotee like you? Swambhu Manu also, he brings forth the vision of the devotee. So he says, Bhutavasam Harim Bhavan. So they consider the Lord to reside in the body of all embodied beings. So this is the worship of the mode of worship of a yogi. When it is perfected, then they see the same Paramatma residing in the body of everybody. So the Jnani sees the same soul residing in everybody and develops neutrality. But the yogi sees the Paramatma along with the soul residing in everybody, so he develops affection. That this is my worshipable Lord sitting over there. So Manu is reminding Dhruva that you performed austerities and you got the audience of the Lord. The same Lord is also residing in the bodies of the yakshas. You prayed to the Lord with so much of love and affection. You have so much devotion for him. The same Lord is residing in the yakshas that you are so mercilessly killing. So you should be compassionate of this. Now, Dhruva is aware of all this. Otherwise, he would not be glorified as an perfected devotee. But as we discussed earlier, that circumstantially he has forgotten. And at this point, it's the duty of another Vaishnava to remind and rescue a devotee in the time of such crisis. So when we say that a devotee is perfected, it does not mean that the devotee is infallible. And that would be imposing Mayavad. When somebody says that the person is infallible under all circumstances, only Krishna is infallible under all circumstances. And when any jiva takes on that position, through whatever way, that is assuming divinity, which is Mayavad. But the glory of devotees who are advanced is that even if they fall down, they recover. And they recover because of the mercy of other devotees. And that is why Krishna says, Api chet sudoracha bhajante mam ananya bhakt sadhureva samantavya. That even if they fall down, they should be considered as sadhu. Why? Not because in the fallen state they are still perfect, but because they will inevitably receive the mercy of another devotee, take that mercy and very quickly be restored in their original position. Verse 12. Satvam Hare Andhyatas. Satvam Hare Anudhyatas. Tatpum Shamapi Sammataha. Katham Tvavadhyam Kritvan. Anushikshan Satam Vratam. Because you're a pure devotee of the Lord is always thinking of you. And you're also recognized by all his confidential devotees. Your life is meant for exemplary behavior. I'm therefore surprised. Why have you undertaken such an abominable task? So you can see that Swambhavu Manu he is an expert amongst other things. He's a pure devotee. He is also one of the 12 Mahajans, but he's a king. He's an expert politician. So now he is really rubbing it in. Dhruva Maharaj. So he's saying, Yad yad ashati sheshas, tatta devatarojana. That whatever great men do, other men follow. So what you're doing is not just harming you, but it is harming others. So the responsibility of great people is proportional to the greatness. Right? When Krishna says in the 3rd chapter that if I neglect to perform my duty, the whole world will be put in ruination. Right? So if I was to not perform my duty, then I would be put into ruination. But Krishna, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Or Arjun, who was a great king, if they did not perform the duty, then other people who take inspiration from them would follow. So that's why Manu is saying, Prabhupada says that you should always act in such an exemplary way that others may learn from you under the circumstance. It is surprising that you have killed so many faultless yakshas. So in the verse Swayambhu Manu, he's also asking Dhruva that what would your worshipable Lord think of your actions? Because of your prior good qualities, the Lord considers you with great affection. And now he sees you kill so many innocent beings driven by ignorance. What will he think? So those who follow Dhruva and those that Dhruva follow, Manu is saying both of them will be disappointed by him. Okay, verse 13. Titikshaya karunyaya maitricha kila jantushu samatvena cha sarvatma bhagwan samprashidati. The Lord is very satisfied with his devotees. When the devotees greet other people with tolerance, mercy, friendship, and equality. So, in the previous verse, Swayambhu Manu had put this question that what would the Lord think of you to see you act in such a way? Now he is answering that question. He's saying the qualities that please the Lord are not the qualities that are being demonstrated by you. So in other words, he is informing Dhruva that his actions are certainly not Bhagavan Samprasidati. They are certainly not pleasing to the Lord. So what are the qualities that are pleasing to the Lord? Titiksha Maitreya Kauranya. That one who describes the devotee who extends friendship to the peers, mercy to the inferiors, and respect or tolerance to the superior. So, and Srila Prabhupada expands on these qualities in the purport. So, implicitly, what is Manu criticizing Dhruva for? So, he's saying titiksha. So, titiksha is tolerance. And he's saying, but unfortunately, you could not tolerate the fact that your brother was killed by a yaksha. You're being intolerant. Then karunya is mercy. Even if the yakshas were in the wrong, as a devotee, he is saying to Dhruva, you're expected to show karunya, mercy, and maitreya. Maitreya is, he is saying that you should show friendship to all living entities. Chakhila jantushu. But instead of that, you are being inimical to the yakshas. Then samatvenacha sarvatma. That the nature of the devotees is that they should take the happiness and distress of others to be their own. You are doing exactly the opposite. That you are considering their happiness to be your distress, and you want their distress to be your happiness. So all the qualities that you're displaying right now are the ones that are not shown in the devotees of the Lord. So Manu says these are the qualities that satisfy the Lord. But because each of these 4 qualities you're not showing, you can understand that the Lord is not satisfied with you. Verse 14. Samprasayane bhagvati purusha prakriti gunaha vimukta jiva nirmukto brahma nirvanam rachati. One who actually satisfies the Supreme Personality of Godhead during one's lifetime becomes liberated from the gross and subtle material conditions. Thus, being free from all material modes of nature, he achieves unlimited spiritual bliss. So, Jiva Nirmukto. Jiva Nirmukto means being freed from the subtle body. Jiva Nirmukto is also described as the position of the Gyanis. The 7th canto, this is used to describe the liberation that is attained by the Gyanis. But in this verse, Swayambhu Manu is not talking about Gyanis. He says, Purusha Prakrite Guna. That one is not only free from the gunas of Prakriti, but especially, he says, Vimukto. So, Vimukto means that, Mukto means that merging into the Brahman. Vimukto means beyond merging into the Brahman. So the position of one in this situation is that he attains the association of the personal form of the Lord. So Swayambhu Manu is, and this is the last verse spoken by him. So he is instructing Dhruva as what is known as a sandwich. That he started off in a more conciliatory manner. The verses in between are strong criticism. And now he ends with again glorifying Dhruva. That so even though say one who satisfies the Lord during one's lifetime, he's essentially talking about Dhruva. He's saying you satisfy the Lord within your lifetime, so you're vimukta. You're already free from all the modes of material nature, and you have achieved unlimited spiritual bliss. So Banu is saying that just forget about what has happened. You may have been temporarily contaminated by the modes. You may have been acting without taking guidance from others, but your position is unshaken. So you should quickly return to that position. So in these 8 verses, there are 14 instructions that are given by Manu. I'll quickly go over them, and I'll also send them to you as a table, so you do not have to note them now. So in verse 7, Manu says that that Vatsarat Surna Tamodvarena. That excessive anger is the path to ignorance. Then he said, Avadhistvam Anaksha. That these yakshas are innocent. Then Karma Sat Vigrahita. He says that acts are not approved by authorities. Acts that are being done by Dhruva. Nashmad Kula Uchita. Do not fit the lineage of Dhruva. Upadevana Akartha Enasham. That the yakshas are sinless. Previously he said the yakshas are without offense. Now he's saying that they are sinless. Then Nanvekashya Pradena Prasangat Bhavohata. For the offense of one yaksha, you have killed many. Bhratrurvad Abhipatena Tvaganga Prate Vatsala. That you are aggrieved by the death of your brother, whom you had strong affection for, and thus you are illusioned. Nayam Margo hi sadhu nam Rishikeshan Anuvartita. Not a path recommended for the devotees of Lord Hari. Yad Atmanam Paragraya Pashuvad Bhuta Vaishisham. Only those who are like animals kill others indiscriminately. Vishnu Stad Paramam Pada. That such actions are not befitting you, who has already received the blessings of the Lord. Vishnu Stad Paramam Padam. Sattvam Harir Anudhyatas. That the Lord is constantly remembering you. So do not disappoint him. Anushikshan Satambratam. What kind of example are you setting for others, other devotees? Titikshya Karunya Maitreya Chakila Jantasu. The Lord is pleased when his devotees act with tolerance, mercy, friendship, and equality. And then Samprashena Bhagavati Vimukta Jiva Nimukto Brahma Nirvanam Prachati. That one who pleases the Lord attains unlimited spiritual bliss, which should be the position that Dhruv is, and that is the position that he should aspire to return quickly. Verse 15. Bhuta pancha biraradhe yoshit purusha evahi tayo vyavayat sambhuti yoshit purusha yoreha. The creation of the material world begins with the 5 elements, and thus everything, including the body of a man or a woman, is created of these elements. By the sexual life of man and woman, the number of men and women in this material world is further increased. So in the previous 7 verses, Swayambhuva Manu, or 8 verses, Swayambhuva Manu was directly instructing Dhruva Maharaj. Now in 12 verses, from 15 to 26, he speaks in a more philosophical way. He speaks about the understanding of the Supreme Lord as the cause of all causes and the nature of material creation. So he's the core essence of these verses is that Manu is telling Dhruva that everybody is killed because of their own activities. So you should not blame the yakshas for killing your brother. But he makes this point from a philosophical way, mostly for our benefit. So what does he say over here? That the material world is created from Pradhan. So he's going right back to the beginning in Sarga and Visarga. Right? So these are the primary and secondary creation. And then Manu says that the Nitya or the continuous creation happens due to the interaction between the male and female members. And Manu essentially represents the um, um, the beginning of that process, right? Because when Brahma created Manu, and then Manu united with Shatrupa, and thus they had many children, and then they united with each other, and then the continuous creation happened. So in one verse, he basically talks about the creation of the universe, the primary, the secondary, and the continuous. So Prabhupada says that when Swayambhava Manu saw that Dhruva Maharaj understood the philosophy of Vaishnavism, yet was still dissatisfied because of his brother's death, he gave him an explanation of how his material body is created in 5 elements. So this is essentially the principle of spiritual advancement. Now, in this case, it's coming in a slightly different order, but spiritual advancement is basically running on 2 legs, that of material detachment and spiritual attachment. Generally, material detachment comes a little sooner and then spiritual attachments. But because Dhruva is a different position, he's already a perfected devotee. In the previous verses, Manu, he spoke more about the spiritual attachment. His attachment to the Lord, his attachment to the devotees, his vision as a perfect devotee. Now he is speaking about material detachment. He is speaking about the philosophy of the material world, which when one understands, one develops vairagya. This also means that one should always remember the basics. Dhruva was spiritually perfect, yet Swayambhava Manu is reminding him about the mechanics of the material world. Very similar to the instructions that Krishna gives to Arjuna at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita. And what is the constitution of this material world? How does it bind people? What is the law of karma? And understanding that, one develops detachment. That's why Prabhupada says that Manu says because he is still dissatisfied because of his brother's death. So he might say, I understand what you're talking about, the need for me to satisfy the Lord, the need for me to act as a devotee. But how do I address the fact that I am still unhappy about my death, about the death of my brother? In order to instill detachment in Dhruva, Swayambhava Manu is now speaking these 12 verses. Okay, so we'll do a couple of more verses and then pause for any discussion. Evam pravrate sarga sthiti samyamaeva cha gunavyati karadrajan Mayaya Paramatmanaha. All these creations, as well as maintenance and destruction. Manu continued, my dear King Dhruva, it is simply by the illusory material energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and by the interaction of the 3 modes of material nature that creation, maintenance, and annihilation takes place. So Manu is saying that this is all happening by the illusory energy of Krishna. The previous verse spoke about the 3 stages in creation: the Sarga, Visarga, and then the Jati Sarga, the continuation of the creation through birth. This verse talks about maintenance and destruction. So it says that all this is the interaction of the 3 modes of material nature, that the creation, maintenance, and annihilation is taking place. And this is all happening under Krishna's material energy. Maya dakshena prakriti suyatesa charachara. So Prabhupada in the purport makes the point that one who is elevated in the modes everything, including longevity, improves. It's a corollary, and Prabhupada makes an interesting point that he says that creation is Rajguna, which is passion, maintenance is Satoguna, and annihilation is Tamoguna. So those who are situated in the mode of goodness live longer than those who are situated in the mode of passion. In other words, if one is elevated to the mode of goodness, he is elevated to a higher planetary system where the duration of the life is very great. Urdhvam gachanti satvastha. This is Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, verse 18. Great rishis, sages, and sannyasis who maintain themselves in Sattva or the mode of material goodness are elevated to a higher planetary system. And this point we can see even in empirically. The people who are in the mode of goodness, who eat in a controlled way, who live a disciplined life, tend to enjoy better health. And on the other end of the spectrum, people in the mode of ignorance, who are given to intoxication and uncontrolled senses, they either live with many diseases or live a very short life. Okay, we'll do one more verse and then after that we'll pause. Nimittamatram tatrasin nirguna purushashvaha vyakta vyaktam idam visham yat brahmati lohavat. My dear Dhruva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is uncontaminated by the material modes of nature. He is the remote cause of the creation of this material cosmic manifestation. When he gives the impetus, many other causes effects are produced. And thus the whole universe moves just as iron moves by the integrated force of a magnet. So in the previous two verses, Swayambhava Manu had talked about the process of creation, maintenance, and destruction of the universe. Here he is saying that the Lord is the indirect cause of all of this. So one may ask that how can all this creation, maintenance, and destruction happen without some foundation of consciousness based on the previous two verses that Manu has said? So Manu clarifies that no, it's not that it is happening without a foundation of consciousness. In fact, it is the supreme consciousness that is supporting it. So does that mean that this consciousness is material? No. The Lord empowers others like Brahma and Shiva. So the example of the magnet is given. That even though the magnet does not have any direct contacts with the iron filings, it still exerts influence on them. So this is how the Lord acts through his agents like the devas and the humans. The iron filings, they move around as if they are animated. But factually, it is because of the influence of the remotely situated magnet, which is not directly connected to them. This is also the opening statement of the Bhagavatam, Dharmadi Yasyato Navaya Itaras, that it says that Vasudev is the Anavyat, the direct, and Itarata, the indirect cause of all creation, sustenance, and destruction. Right? It's so Janmadi Yasya Yata. So same point is being made by Manu over here. Prabhupada explains this with another analogy. He gives an analogy of the potter and the potter's wheel. So the potter wheel rotates and many varieties of earthen pots come out. So there can be many causes of the earthen pot, like the wheel or the mud. But the original cause is the potter, who is the one who is making it happen. That force is essentially explained as the same as the Lord. Prabhupada says the same is explained in Bhagavad Gita. Behind all material actions and reactions, there is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna says that everything depends on his energy, and yet he is not everywhere. So Prabhupada is essentially, he's essentially paraphrasing the verse from chapter 9, verse 4. Maya tatamidam sarvam jagadavyaktamurtana, that by me in my unmanifested form, the entire universe is pervaded. All things are in me, but I am not in them. So let me pause over here and see if you have any comments or discussion.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, like, I was just wondering, like, this Dhruv Maharaj, like, he is a Kshatriya, right? But I mean, of course, he's a devotee, but I mean, you know, he comes from a Kshatriya lineage. And he was basically asked to show compassion and you know, basically not fight the war with the yakshas. Is that something that is that is expected as we, so basically you know, move higher than this varnashram system as one advances in devotional service, like, you know, basically come out of this Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra categorization, and basically you know, be more Brahminical, I guess. Or does being a devotee mean is synonymous to becoming a Brahmana?
Right. So yes, what you're saying is correct, that Dhruv is being asked to be aware of two things. So one that he's being asked to be aware of is that the battle that he's fighting is adharmic. So Kshatriyas are recommended to fight battles on the religious principles. But Swayambhavu Manu, he has already established that this battle is not being fought on religious principles. The Yakshas did not attack Dhruva. The Yakshas did not kill. One Yaksha killed, but the other Yakshas did not kill his brother. They are presenting no threat to him, and yet he is mercilessly killing them. And so it's not on the Kshatriya principle. And then he goes on to say that it does not satisfy the qualities of a devotee also. Karunya, Titiksha, Maitreya, that of being merciful, compassionate, friendly. It's not satisfying those principles. So from both perspectives, he says that Dhruva is not acting properly. Now, the other principle that does not really come into play over here, but I think that you're alluding to, is that is Manu asking Dhruva to forgive the Yakshas because he's a devotee? The answer is yes, but he's also asking him to forgive not fight with the Yakshas, even as a Kshatriya, even as a king. So it's not that the battle was a just battle. And then Manu would have said that, let them be. Like the instructions that Brahma gives to Prithu Maharaj later on, when Indra steals his horse, then he says, clearly you're on the path of dharma, Indra is on the path of adharma. It's completely justified for you to go because Prithu Maharaj then resolved to kill Indra. So he says, clearly justified for you to want to kill Indra. Dharma is there. But then he says, you're a devotee. So just give up this enmity. Just consider Indra to be somebody who is troubled by his own ego, and let him go. And so that's more of an example of the point that you're making, that when one becomes more and more spiritually advanced, then the expectation is that they get less and less affected by the modes, and they tend to follow through the pushings of the modes much lesser.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. In this verse, last verse, we can see that like science talk about magnetic force and ion filing have been attracted. We can see here the analogy has been used for millions of years ago. That means magnetic field was not discovered. It was something that was already mastered and used in the creation. Even we say that Earth has its own magnetic field, and other planet has their own magnetic field. Maybe this is what make them float. We don't know. But science tend to ridicule, the Vedas sometimes, or the Vedic literature. But this is a big example, a great example to show the greatness of the philosophy that we have.
You're right. And also, it speaks about Vidyut, electricity, other places, right? Many years before electricity actually came. And then in the 5th canto, we'll see how the universe is described, that the astronomers are still trying to figure it out. So the knowledge was there, and in a much more, Prabhupada says, in a much more replete form, much more mature form. But of course, the purpose of the Bhagavatam is, it uses as an analogy to show it. The purpose of the Bhagavatam is not to demonstrate that knowledge. And that's why many of these scientific forces, etc., even in the part of the Vedas that are meant to explain them, they're often hidden behind metaphors and analogies, right? So they're hidden behind parables and symbolism. And the real purpose is to ensure that they don't fall in the hands of people who are not qualified. That one who are in the parampara, they know how to decipher these symbolism and metaphors and explain the underlying. It's kind of like if you open a book on advanced maths and you'll see all these very complicated symbols and notations. And unless you have studied it systematically, you won't understand what it all means. Kind of a reflection of it, not one same to same, but kind of a reflection. But Prabhupada, or one thing if you notice is that Prabhupada has a fascination for Vimans. Anytime a Viman comes, Prabhupada will write in the purport that this is a clear indication that they were aerial flying ships in the ancient times. Even if it comes 3 times in the same chapter, he'll write 3 times in the purport there to stress the point that you're making. That the Vedic civilization was, from a engineering perspective, very advanced, but that was not what the glory was. The glory was the spiritual realization.
Yeah, I like this analogies that Prabhupada did about the Viman you said last time. You know, the purport as well. When the Mayavadi, they go high, like they fly, and then when the fuel is gone, it's finished, they fall down. I mean, the
Yeah.
Viman.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhupada.
So, okay. So moving on, verse 18. Sakhalvidam Bhagavan Kal Shaktya Guna Pravahena Vibhaktavirya Karotya Karteva Nihantya Hanta Cheshta Vibhumnaha Khalau Durvibhavya. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, by his inconceivable supreme energy, time causes the interaction. I'm sorry. Let me read it again. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, by his inconceivable supreme energy, time, causes the interaction of the three modes of material nature. And thus varieties of energy become manifest. It appears that he is acting, but he is not the actor. He is killing, but he is not the killer. Thus it is understood that only by his inconceivable power is everything happening. So one of the things that you would have noticed that, and this is a recurring theme, that whenever this tattva is presented, that the Supreme Lord is the cause of everything, then almost always concomitant with that is also made, this point is also made that he is neutral. And the reason that these 2 points are made at the same time is because if any one of those points is made without the other point, it would mar the greatness of the Lord. It would mar his reputation, contaminate his reputation. So if one would accept that the Lord is the cause of everything without accepting his neutrality, then one would have to accept the fact that the Lord is inimical by nature, that he is creating all this distress and suffering and the killing in this material world. Now, the complementary to that is, if you accept that the Lord is all good and he is not responsible for all this killing and suffering, then you may accept you would be forced to accept the fact that the Lord is limited. He is not the cause of all causes. So that is why these two tattvas always go together. So when Manu initially said that the Lord is the cause of all causes, he is creating, maintaining, and destroying, right after that, he says that by his inconceivable supreme energy, time causes the interaction of the modes of material nature, and thus the various energies become manifested. It appears that he is acting, but he is not the actor. He is killing, but he is not the killer. So he is acting because it is his energy. He is not acting because it is his energies who are acting. He is unaffected and he is inconceivable. So let's go over the flow that Manu has given. So previous to previous verse, he said that the gunas are agitated by the time energy of the Lord. I'm sorry, in this verse he says that the gunas are agitated by the time energy of the Lord. Whenever there is time, chronology comes. So the notion of sequence comes. So by the effect of this time, Jiva Shakti, which is the separated energy of the Lord, enters into Virya, Maya Shakti. And by the agitation of these gunas, Vibhakta, he then acts in various ways. So since the Lord is non-different from his energies, Jivas, Gunas and Kal, he is considered as the Upadan Karma, as the immediate cause, as well as the Nimit Karma, as well as the efficient cause. At the same time, he is the non-doer, since the energies are not his Swarup. Vishwanath Chakravarti makes this, emphasizes on this, that the Swarup is the original possession of the Lord. So this Upadan Karma and Nimit Karma, by which Jiva, Gunas and Kala are being put into motion, they are not the Lord's Swarup. They are the Lord's Shaktis. So how do we understand this? The famous example of Prabhupada, that a person is a judge. So being a judge is not his Swarup. Being a judge is his Shakti. As a judge, he sits and he orders execution and punishments for people. But his Swarup is that he may be a father or a grandfather, he may be a jolly person, compassionate, kind, wanting to help others. That's his Swarup. But because he sits on the chair of a judge, he acts in that way. So this relationship between Swarup and Shakti, they are always brought forth together so that those who are reading this verse do not get bewildered. Now, there are still some unanswered questions. That if this is not his Swarup, why does he create the universe? Why does he destroy rather than continuously creating the universe? Why is there inequality in the universe? So in order to dismiss such questions, Swayambhavu Manu says, Durvibhavya, that the Lord is inconceivable, and Vibhumna, that he is all-powerful. So all-powerful does not just mean like power of physical power, also means that he's all-powerful in his ability to conceive, his intellect, his foresight. In all ways, he is all-powerful. So how can somebody with limited intelligence conceive the thought process of one who is perfectly intelligent? So Manu says, Durvibhavya, that there are many things that cannot be understood. Not because they don't make sense, but because we cannot conceive them with our intelligence. So he does not say we have limited intelligence, but he says that the Lord has unlimited intelligence. Same point made. Instead of saying that this line is shorter than this line, he's saying that the other line is longer than this line. The Prabhupada in the purport, he gives the example of the government working for the benefit of the citizens, also punishes the miscreants and imprisons them. Similarly, the Lord is all merciful, but his mercy needs to be understood in a proper context. Prabhupada first said that Durvibhavya means that inconceivable by a tiny brain. And Vibhakta Virya means that many potencies. He has many potencies. So it's not the power of a small brain to comprehend. unless one accepts the inconceivable power of the Lord, one cannot make any progress. Srila Prabhupada also explains the notion of remote influence of the Lord by giving the example of fire. That when there is fire, there is heat and light. And if it is a strong fire, then the heat and the light spreads so far that one may not even see the fire, but one can experience the heat and the light. So within the sun globe, there is a fire burning, but it is so far that we don't see that fire, but we experience the heat and the light. And then he gives the example of the electric powerhouse also, that we get electricity in our house. We don't know where the powerhouse is, but we know there is one. So similarly, we don't have to see the Lord to understand his power. But by experiencing the power, we can understand that the Lord is present. So Prabhupada says that the production, which is the end product, is never identical with the original source of the energy. But the original source of energy, being the prime factor, is simultaneously one with and different from the product. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya's philosophy of Achintya Bheda Bhed Tattva is the perfect way of understanding it. Another analogy that is used to explain it is that the bees, they're attracted by the nectar of the lotus flower. So attracted by the nectar, a bee enters into the lotus flower, and then it so happens that the sun sets. So when the sun sets, then the lotus flower closes and it traps the bee, and the bee dies. So does that mean that the sun is responsible for the death of the bee? So the answer is yes and no. And yes, if you take the causation far enough, because the sun set, the flower closed and the bee died. And no, because the sun had nothing to do with the death of the bee. So same principle of Achintya Bheda. Okay. Let's do verse 19. Swanantanata karaha kala nadiradikruddavyaya janam janena janyam maryan mrityunanantakam. My dear Dhruva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is ever existing. But in the form of time, he is the killer of everything. He has no beginning, although he is the beginning of everything. Nor is he ever exhaustible, although everything is exhausted in due course of time. The living entities are created through the agency of the Father and killed through the agency of death. But he is perpetually free from birth and death. So Swambhavu Manu speaks about the powers of the Lord, that he creates and destroys, but he himself is without beginning or end. He supplies, but he is never diminished. He is the cause of all causes, but he is always unchanged. So even Lord Yama is ultimately killed. So everything in the material world is destroyed through the agency of, so it is known as Kal Agni Rudra. Kal Agni Rudra is another name for the destruction of the Lord. But he is indestructible. He is without birth, but he causes the birth of others. Janena. Janena means that he empowers the parents to produce children. He supplies everyone with everything, but never diminishes, like a touchstone, which can create many valuable stones and jewels, but will never decrease in its own father. So this is more or less a paraphrase of Om Purnama, the Purnamidam. And this is essentially completing that thought that Swayambhu Manu is developing, that the Lord is the cause of everything, but he's neutral. So to Dhruv, he wants to say that ultimately the death of your brother has been caused by the Lord. But he is neutral because your brother has died because of his own karma, which has been put in place by the Lord. So by this, Manu is making 2 points to Dhruva. One is he's showing the hand of the Lord. And the second, he is also showing where the culpability lies. Does not lie with the Lord. The reason that Uttam was killed was because it was Uttam's time to die, which was determined by Uttama's own activities. Right? So both the points he's making. But in this, the yakshas are nowhere to be seen in the picture. So Srila Prabhupada gives the example of some of the great generals in the past that killed many living entities, but in the end, they were killed themselves. And Prabhupada says people are still very interested in reading and writing books about how they killed so many people. Year after year, many books are published, but no one is researching how these people were killed. So he gives the example of Hitler and Napoleon, that they killed so many people, and people are interested in finding how they killed so many people. But what about trying to find about who killed Hitler and Napoleon? So Prabhupada is making this point that Krishna is the biggest killer. But of course, this point goes with the fact that he is also neutral. Verse 20. Navai swapaksho syabhipakshaiva parasya mrityor vishtu samam prajah tam dhavamanam anudhavantanisha yatha rajamsya anilam bhuta sangha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, in his feature of eternal time, is present in the material world and is neutral towards everyone. No one is his ally and no one is his enemy. Without the jurisdiction of the time element, within the jurisdiction of the time element, everyone enjoys or suffers the results of his own karma or fruitive activities. As when the wind blows, small particles of dust fly in the air. So according to one's own particular karma, one suffers or enjoys material life. So though the Lord creates and destroys, he cannot be accused of injustice because he is always neutral. So this is explained in 2 verses, 20 and 21. In verse 18, Manu has said that the Lord is unaffected. So there's a difference between unaffected and neutral. Unaffected means that when the Lord is giving, he does not get depleted. When the Lord is killing, there is no envy in him. Or when the Lord is awarding, there is no happiness. That means unaffected. Neutral means that whether a person is taking birth or whether the person is dying, they are both treated by the same rules. There is no difference between the two. So if we take once again the example of the judge, the difference between unaffected and neutral is that when the judge awards somebody a death sentence, he does not lament. Or when he releases somebody, he does not rejoice. Now, in evaluating whether the person should be given a death sentence or released, the judge is not in any way biased by the person or by anything else. He simply follows the rules. Right? So earlier on, Manu was saying the Lord is unaffected. Now he's saying that the Lord is neutral. So one may ask that if the Lord is neutral, so naswapaksha or vipaksha, why are some entities enjoying and others suffering? Or why is the same entity at some time enjoying and another time suffering? Why are some taking birth and why are others dying? So Manu answers that question. All this is happening because the influence of karma being served by Kal. Everybody enjoys or suffers their own karma. The Lord is neutral. He is neither friendly nor inimical. But then one may say that this karma is being created by the Lord. Kal is an energy of the Lord. So how can you say that he is neutral? You can say he is neutral because they act in the same way on everyone. Partiality means when one thing acts in one way on one and on a different way on another, or in different circumstances it acts differently. But Kal and karma, it acts the same way for everyone at all points of time. So Manu explains this with an analogy. He says that the wind will carry dust, which causes darkness, as well as fire, which causes light, or water, which causes dampness. So the wind is the same. Whether what it is carrying is darkness or light or dampness, it is neutral. It is not concerned with it. Similarly, the Lord neutrally carries the good and bad results of the actions of the jivas. Okay, let's move on to the next verse. Ayusho pachayam jantas tatheva pachayan vibhu ubha bhayam rahitam swastho dostasya vidhatya sau. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu is all powerful, and he awards the results of one's fruitive activities. Thus, although one's living entity's duration of life is very small, whereas that of another is very great, he is always in his transcendental position. And there is no question of lessening or increasing his duration of time. So Manu is using different analogies to demonstrate the neutrality of the Lord. So some jivas have a long life and some jivas have a short life. But this is the result of their own fruitive activities. So this talks about the fact that the Lord is neutral. And then he also says that there is no question of lessening or increasing his duration of life, pointing to the Lord, which points to the fact that the Lord is unaffected. So he's talking about both these attributes of the Lord. Prabhupada says, both the mosquito and Lord Brahma are living entities. Both are minute parts of the Supreme Lord. The very short duration of the life of the mosquito and the long life of Brahma are awarded by the Supreme Lord according to the results of their own karma. So Srila Prabhupada also makes this point in the purport that this neutrality of the Lord is only for non-devotees. And he is always partial to his devotees. So he quotes Brahma Samhita, where Lord Brahma says, Stvandra Gopanta Vendra Maho Swakarma Bandhanu Rupa Phala Bhajanam Atmanoti Karmani Nirdati Kintacha Bhakti Bhajam Govindamad Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. That everyone is enjoying the fruits of their own activities. But in case of devotees, it is the Lord who is awarding them the fruits of their activities. It is the Lord who burns up the roots of all the fruitive activities, those who are imbued with devotion. And similar point is made in Brahma Samhita and Bhagavad Gita. Samom sarvabhuteshu name dveshasya na priya ye bhajanti tu mam bhaktya mam tateshu chapya. I'm neutral to everybody, but I'm partial to my devotees. So that is why the activities of the devotees are called Krishna karma, because they don't come under the purview of karma, because devotees are under the direct control of the Lord. So they may appear as karma, but they're actually awarded by the Lord. Okay. So let me pause over here and see if there is any discussion.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, if there's nobody else, I just want to say something about what Prabhupada said in the purport of when the wind carried the dust. I was watching sometime a documentary on in the desert of Sahara. When the wind blows, it carries all the dust all the way to the Amazon in Brazil. And this dust, actually, it's ton of dust. And if they have to accumulate if it's not raining, it will cover so much height of dust. And as Prabhupada is saying in the purport, it gives to the forest varieties in the forest. It's true. This nourish the dust actually nourish the whole Amazon forest.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. Actually, there's a whole documentary on it, how the Sahara desert, when the wind blew there, how the dust is carried all the way over the Atlantic Ocean coming to Brazil. Amazing.
Thank you for sharing.
And then one more thing, Prabhu, about we say that the devotees are not under the karma, is under the control of Krishna. Our karma is under the control of Krishna. But when we say devotees, what type of devotees? Are pure devotees or beginners like us?
All devotees.
Like me.
All devotees.
Irrespective.
All devotees, because Rupa Goswami says, right, if one is chanting the name of the Lord, he's a devotee. All devotees come under the control of Krishna. Now, how Krishna gives the reactions to the karma is up to him. In some cases, the reactions look very similar to karma. Some cases, the devotees get excessive reaction. Like, one should not think that Krishna is always cushioning them. And in some cases, the reactions are excessive in order to accelerate their path. And in many cases, the reactions are modified. That the suffering is reduced, but the lesson is imparted. But this is how Krishna is guiding us. Like when we take to devotional service, when we are mixed devotees, neophytes, then our bhakti is not that strong. But Krishna wants to encourage us. So he takes control of our karma. And he starts through, because we are more ourselves more in karma and less in bhakti, or us, me. So more in karma, less in bhakti. What is Krishna? What is the avenue that Krishna has? Right? We're a little bit in bhakti and mostly in karma. So he has to take control of karma. And through karma, he gives us the realizations. Sometimes when we pray to him, he protects us, and then we say, "Okay, Krishna, thank you for protecting," and our faith increases. Right? And sometimes we get a more severe reaction, and then we develop detachment, and we say, "Okay, this material life is not worth living. Time to take more shelter of Krishna." It's these realizations that help us advance in devotional life, which for mixed devotees is coming from karma. At this point, we're not at the stage that when we chant, we get visions, or or we go into ecstasy when hearing Krishna's name. We are more as sadhakas. Karma is the agency that Krishna has. That's what he uses to like, the fisherman puts that, and then he reels the fish. So that's what Krishna is doing. He's reeling us in through that which we find attractive now, which is this whole paraphernalia of karma.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Any other question, comments? Okay. So if not, we'll end here. Vanchakalpatarubhayascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Anant Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thai Gaur Premanand. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.